Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jasmine Anderson and today I'm going to be talking about placements during your PGCE training year. So your PGCE year is made up of your school experience, which is your placements, and also you've got essays to do. And it varies from university to university, but for my university we had our first placement, which was our shortest one, and that was on a 33% timetable. Then we had our second placement, which is our longer placement, and we were supposed to work up to a 66% timetable. Now, during your placement, it's an opportunity for you to get, real school experience, and so you'll have lessons, of course, that you'll be teaching, that it won't be a full timetable. One of the first things that happened is that I got an email from my uni letting me know what school I was going to be doing my first school experience or my first placement in, and then it was my responsibility to contact the school, and they give you contact name to email. So you have a PCM in every school. PCM stands for Professional Coordinating Mentor, and basically that person in the school, that contact in the school, is in charge of all the mentors. And so you would have different mentors for different departments. I'm speaking through the secondary school placement, and the PCM is in charge of all the mentors. So what I did was I emailed my PCM letting them know that I was going to be starting. So I emailed them the week prior, letting them know I'm going to be starting the next week, and just kind of introducing myself. And I think I also did the same thing for my mentor as well. So you arrive at the school on your first day at reception. You have to sign in as a visitor. Your PCM will then come and greet you. What they did for me is they gave me and the other trainees, a tour of the school, just telling us a bit about the school, what the pupils are like, what the standard is like academically, and then we were introduced to our mentors. And from the first week, my mentor was the person that I kind of observed the most, and so I would sit in her class and just observe her teaching. I would also help, where I could, helping the students, etc. Or just helping her out in different ways. So all of that is just to introduce you into how that school works. It's probably the end of that week or the following week I got my timetable, and that let me know what classes I would be teaching. And so what happens is that you take over another teacher's class, so you have to then do their planning and delivering of that lesson. So I think you can kind of negotiate or speak with your mentor about where you want to start. If you want to start teaching like a 10% timetable and then work up to 33%, or whether you want to start even lower, just doing like 1 or 2 classes. I should tell you that a normal teacher's timetable, so a teacher who doesn't have any responsibility, their timetable would be 90% of the school week. And you'd also have mentor meetings with your mentor. So your mentor would observe you, so you might have informal observations, and also you'd have to have formal observations as well. Your informal observations, what I would do is I'd give my mentor a book and I just ask her to just make notes. And also other classes that I taught for other teachers, I'd also ask them the same thing, if they could just write notes for me, what went well, what could be worked on. I'd use that feedback to improve on my next lessons. And then at some point during the week, you'd have an official mentor meeting where you'll set targets. Your targets are based off the teacher standards, so familiarise yourself with those if you haven't already. So there's 8 teacher standards, and your targets with your mentor every week would be based on how well you are achieving those 8 teacher standards and things that you can work on to make sure that you're hitting them. So for us, we wouldn't look at all 8 every week, because that would be very overwhelming when you're just starting. So maybe pick 2 or 3 of the ones that you want to work on that week, talk with your mentor about it during your meeting, and they will give you advice on how you can improve your practice and make sure that you are achieving those standards. As well as having your mentor meetings, you should also have CPD sessions, so continual professional development sessions. And a lot of schools that's just done with the trainees, so the PCM would meet with the group of trainees in that school and deliver some type of CPD for them to just help them also to improve. Also, we took part in the normal weekly training sessions that they had at the school as well. You also take part in the department meetings, so depending on how often they are, that's something you would attend. And I know that sometimes it can feel like a bit of a drag having to stay back after school to go to those meetings when you're training, but I think it's worth doing because you want as much evidence, and you really want strong evidence to show that you are meeting the 8 teacher standards. And staying behind for meetings, department meetings, staying behind for parents' evening, all those little things, you know, clubs, if your department runs clubs, all those little things are gonna be what helps you to show that you are meeting those 8 standards. It's quite hard to do that if you're just teaching in class. Obviously the role of a teacher is not just the classroom, it's contributing to the whole school as well. The whole aim of your school placement, as well as to give you experience, is you want to kind of create a portfolio of evidence to show that you have met the 8 teaching standards. So that could be based off your lesson plans, that could be based off your mentor meetings, the official observations that you have. It could be based on any training that you've done. All these little things you need to be gathering evidence for to put in your portfolio to show that you have met the 8 teaching standards. So I'd say just gather as much as you can, and then in the end you can kind of go through it and pick the strongest. For our university, we had to have 3 pieces of evidence for each teaching standard. So we had, of course, 8 teaching standards, and so we had to, you know, pick at least 24 pieces of evidence for our portfolio. That normally I think is checked by your mentor, and then they have to write a little kind of statement for you to just kind of saying like how well you've done and things that you still need to work on. So for my university, we had to do a profile at the end of our placement, and in our profile we listed where we had met the 8 teaching standards, and you and your mentor would decide together how well you had met those 8 standards. So for us, I think it was, there were 4 levels, like outstanding was the best, and then you had good, requires improvement, and then I think there was something else. Nothing should really come as a surprise, so you shouldn't meet with your mentor at the end of your placement or at any point in your placement and they're like, yeah, this you're gonna fail. You should be having those discussions with them, and they should be giving you the tools that you need, giving you the advice that you need to make sure that you are passing, because at the end of the day, that's the whole point. No one should want to fail a student. So your second placement, like I said, is you work up to 66% timetable, and yeah, it's pretty much the same as your first placement. It's just that you're teaching more, and I guess the expectation is a little bit higher because you've got all that experience. But again, it's about making sure that you're keeping that portfolio of evidence and making it as varied as possible. And I would say one of the most time-consuming parts of the training is when you are starting to do your planning. So right at the start, I remember my first lesson, I spent like 6 hours planning my first lesson, trying to get it perfect, trying to differentiate. And the thing is, you learn that you'll never have a perfect lesson. You're never gonna, you know, end the lesson thinking, oh my gosh, that was absolutely perfect. You could walk away thinking that went really well, but there's always going to be things that you can tweak. There's always going to be ways that you can improve your practice. I could do that during at the early part of my first placement, because I wasn't teaching that many lessons. But as you go through your training and you're working up towards a 66% timetable, you don't even have the time to spend hours, you know, like all those hours doing a lesson plan. For me, I found that the most important thing was being able to be flexible in my lessons. So you can plan, but then things don't often, or sometimes don't go to plan, and you have to be able to be adaptable and work in the moment to make sure that your students are always progressing. So my top tips for you during your school placement is get to know the teaching standards. You can find them online, the 8 teaching standards, and familiarise yourself with them. Make sure that you're collecting evidence throughout. Go to CPDs, go to department meetings, do all of that, because that's going to help you gather really strong evidence. And yeah, just enjoy it. This is an opportunity for you to make mistakes. No one's expecting you to be perfect. It's also an opportunity for you to try out different things. Expect things to go wrong. Expect to have really good lessons, and try your hardest, but don't beat yourself up if things don't work out. That's just life. I hope you enjoy your school experience, whatever schools you are placed in, and I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you do have any questions, as always, put them in the comment section down below. If you have done your training, if you've done your PGCE or a different type of teacher training, it would be good if you could comment as well. It's what were the pros and what were the difficult parts, and if you could give advice to someone, what would your top tip be? I hope you have a good day, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.